This morning we're beginning a new 3-week series, a church training series. The idea is that each week there'll be a short reflection on the Bible passage that we've heard read, followed by some sort of practical action or opportunity to try out the thing that we're being trained in. This week we're going to look at sermons. Next week will be prayer ministry, and the week after that will be welcome. And that will be leading the next two. But today, I'm going to look at service, and we're going to do that through that gospel reading from Matthew chapter 20. Thinking about what it means to serve our church community. And then for the practical part today, which is probably actually less practical than the next 2 weeks will be, and Matt's asked me to talk through some of the things that go into making our Sunday mornings happen, and the opportunities there are to serve in making our Sunday worship happen here at St Matthew's. I hope that the information I've shared today will be useful to you, to help you to see what goes into making Sundays happen. And if you feel able to become involved in something, even if you already are, perhaps you see something else and you think, actually that might be more me, or I could do that, in time you could let us know about that. In our Gospel reading today, that we're reading from Matthew chapter 20, we heard about this request from the mum of James and John, a request she brought to Jesus that they might sit either side of Jesus in his kingdom. We heard how Jesus called James and John last week, actually, about the miraculous catch of fish out on the lake, and how they left everything to follow him, including leaving their father Zebedee in the boat. Now we hear about them again at the end of Matthew's Gospel. Actually, we're approaching Holy Week, and the week when he's going to lay down his life for them and for us. The week when he'll experience death. Perhaps sensing that the end is near as they've been following him around, hearing him predict his own death, actually, James and John seem to want to cement their place at the top of the pecking order by asking for the seats either side of Jesus in the kingdom. You can imagine a banquet, if you like, in heaven with Jesus at the head of the table and the most important guests either side of him. They want to be those people. They followed him in this life, and they want to be rewarded by getting those important places either side of him. In other places, James and John are called sons of thunder. You can perhaps sense that personality coming through as this request is made. But presumably the parents were also in some way following Jesus. Even though they've been left in the boat, they seem to know what's going on. They want this for James and John. The mom is the one who goes and approaches. And actually there's a few places in the Bible, and I believe it also happened in Roman culture at the time, where an important woman in someone's life would go and approach a leader to speak on their behalf. And actually quite often that woman would be listened to more than the young man in question. So perhaps that's what's going on here, as James and John's mother approaches Jesus, hoping that her wisdom and respect would advance their cause, help them to get what they want. I was working with a family for a funeral recently, and they shared a time that their mum had gone to school in the middle of a snowstorm to demand that the children were let out so that they could get home before the buses stopped running. But she was absolutely panicking that the buses would stop running before the children would be able to get home. So she stormed into school. It was quite funny the way they told it. Stormed into school and demanded of the teacher that all the children be let out immediately. And they were, of course. She obviously was a bit of a fierce woman. But the teacher listened, understood, and let them go. All of the children were sent home. I'm not sure you get into a school that easily today, but that certainly seems to be the case for this lady. in this case, it doesn't actually work. Jesus points out that she doesn't realise what she or her sons are asking. When he asks them whether they can drink the cup that he's going to drink, he's referring to the death that he's about to endure. He's been telling them that it's going to happen, but I'm not sure that they've understood that when they ask the question. And I'm not sure that they understand that when they answer it and say, we can. Jesus tells them that they will indeed die for the sake of God's kingdom, just like he will. But it's not for him to decide who sat by the side of him in the kingdom. Actually, that belongs to God the Father to decide. Then we hear about the outrage of the other disciples as they hear about this request that's been made. Perhaps they wanted those spaces and that's why they were indignant, was the word, I think. Or perhaps they just realised that this request was outrageous. But when Jesus recognises that they're squabbling amongst themselves, he rebukes them. He tells them that these kind of power struggles are not meant to happen within his following, the community of his followers. They're not meant to be like that. That's how it is in the world. Power struggles and vying for position. Certainly that's how it was in the Roman Empire. Jesus says, no, it's not to be like that with you. There's too much of that in the world. A key value in God's kingdom is service. To be greatest, you need to become the least, a servant. To be first, you need to become last. For Jesus, this was going to mean dying for the sake of the world. As I was reading this, it struck me that Jesus is specifically speaking, actually, in this case, about the relationships within the community of believers, amongst his disciples. Of course, we want to demonstrate service in the world, and that kind of first will be last principle in the world. But here Jesus is saying that it's especially important within the church community. This practice of the discipline of service. We have values as a church of family, honour and team. And actually, none of those work without an attitude of service, a willingness to serve each other. So I suppose the question we've been given to think about this morning is, how are we serving? And specifically, how are we serving the St. Matthew's Church family? And I'm sure if we think about it, we can all think of some things that we're doing to serve the church community. Maybe we can think of several, we might be doing a lot. I wonder whether the question is, am I serving in a way that costs me something? When Jesus talks about service, he suggests that it involves giving up some of what we want. For James and John, they weren't necessarily getting those places next to him in the kingdom. For Jesus, it meant giving up his life. Sometimes I think we can think that Jesus came down from heaven with a plan to die, knowing that everything was going to be fine in the end. Maybe he didn't know that when he made the plan, maybe. But of course he was a human being. And whilst he recognised that this was going to happen, that he would have to die, surely he'd have taken another option if there was one. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he speaks about this cup that he's going to drink, and he says, Father, if it's possible, may this cup be taken from me. Surely, if there was another way, he would have taken it. But there wasn't. Serving others cost Jesus everything. How much does our service demand of us? Are we all in our service of the church community and in bringing in God's kingdom? So it's with that in mind that we're going to move on to I suppose we call it the practical part, but I'll be honest, today is more information about ways that we can serve this church community here at St Matthew's. And the way we're going to do that is to look at some of the things that need to happen in church to make Sundays happen. We've figured out that it takes around 20 people each week to make this happen with all the things that go on. And there's usually about 60 of us on average who are adults or over 40 in church. So probably once every 3 weeks, if we all did something, it would happen. So we're just going to hand out some leaflets. They're coming from the back, so you want to keep an eye out for those. On here, we bring down all the tasks, opportunities to serve. It's a much better way of saying tasks. I'm not going to talk through the whole leaflet. I just want to. You can take this away with you and think about how you'll serve it. Okay? I'm going to highlight a few of the things. And this is just Sundays. Obviously, we do things in the week. We'd like to do things in our community. We run one-off events that need a special effort. And there are some things that happen every week, during the week, that we just have to have in place. So, Doug has just volunteered to be our new safeguarding officer. Safeguarding happens all the time. Okay? We're always in contact with our safeguarding officer. That's a really important role, but it's not on here, because it's one that's always there. And cleaning is not on there. Because cleaning happens throughout the week, but we do need people to clean. This list is specifically focused on Sunday, okay? It's not everything, but it's Sunday. Probably just want to say a few general points. When I wrote this, I wrote, how are these people chosen? That's like a question for each one. You're not magically chosen. Make it sound like you're randomly selected. It's like a two-way process. You might feel that one of these roles is for you, and then you talk to the person who's responsible for it, and you figure out if that is what you're called to do. It's not that you're chosen, it's like a two-way thing. And the other thing I want to say is that the things that we don't have in place and are most urgent in a way are listed first. Perhaps the obvious roles that you see on a Sunday, things like the service leader, the preacher, those are slightly unique in a way because you kind of either have to have a license from the Bishop of Lichfield to lead a service or preach, or you have to be invited by the vicar and given training to do that. If you do feel called to that, definitely speak to Matt, but some of these things have a slightly different process. And likewise, if you want to assist with Holy Communion, that has to be approved by the PCC, because in the Church of England, Holy Communion is seen as a very important thing, and so PCC have to approve the people who will distribute communion. But most of the others, we can just arrange as a church by whatever means we choose to do. So we notice the first one on the list, and that's why in 2 weeks' time, Matt's going to be speaking about welcome. We love to have a welcome team. There are people who are great at welcoming people on the door when we come in and chatting over coffee at the end of the service. But we just want to make that a bit more formalised and offer some training in that, which Matt's going to do in a couple of weeks. And so a welcome team, ideally we have 2 people each week who are designated welcomers. You can look out for new people and help them to find someone to sit with if that's what they want, or if not, recognise that and help to leave them alone. But, a friendly face to greet someone and make sure everyone feels welcome. And the second one on the top of page 2 is the prayer ministry team, and that's going to be the subject of next week's training. I believe this church has offered prayer ministry before quite regularly, but we'd like to have a team designated to do that each week. So that would be a couple of people working together as a pair usually. You can pray for people who want specific prayers. That could happen as a response to a sermon or possibly during communion, or it might just be after the service. They're available to pray with you. Like I say, that's what we're going to look at next week. And the other role that we currently don't have, which would be really great to have, is a sound desk operator. So we have a tech team who do that, but no one operates the sound desk. And when we've got people singing and people coming in and out of the room, it's quite good to be able to adjust the levels, especially when all the children leave. It really changes the way things sound in here. At the moment, there's no one doing that. And so if someone hears it's a bit wrong and they know how to, maybe knows they go and try and tweak it. It'd be great to train a couple of people, a few people maybe, who will take responsibility for the sound desk and hopefully just improve the overall sound that we have during worship. The other thing I wanted to do was give anyone who does one of these roles a chance to say why they enjoy doing it, or even what the challenges of doing it are. Conscious of the jam of leaders and helpers, a lot of them will have gone out. If you do something that's on one of these lists and you'd like to say what's good about it, do you want to just wave at me and we'll take it from there. I'm not going to be stood at the back of the clipboard trying to sign up for things, just to be clear. This is just to highlight how important our service of the church community is, and also what opportunities there are to do that. So do take this away. Like I say, this isn't everything that happens in church, but it is some of the key things that make Sunday happen. So perhaps that's somewhere we can start by looking at.